Everyone, welcome to another Music Talk Tuesday, and today for this particular video I thought it'd be interesting to briefly talk about streaming. Apologize I have to delay this video. Unfortunately, I was pretty busy over the weekend and I'm still working on a book. I hope to have it done by Thursday and then I should be all cut up with all the videos. But basically without further ado, for streaming, what I'm talking about as far as its impact to music, in that it sort of changed the way in which people have consumed music, or at least consume music. And beforehand, it was usually within the realms of radio, or you would purchase an album. Even early, even more recently, you would just purchase a song. But now with streaming services, it's taken the whole music industry to another level. And usually these streaming services are either for free or you can pay like a subscription and not get ads. At least that's where most of the streaming services stand from what I can tell. And they're sort of competing for market space and trying to brand themselves and figure out exactly how to differentiate their service from the other streaming services and whatnot. And it's really calling into question, the whole way in which people sort of consume and even kind of make money off of music. And also, another thing that should be considered when discussing this topic is that there is still those that will stream music not through the usual legal realms, and also that has been found to be an issue because then the artist doesn't get paid for their work, and there's tons of disputes on that as well. But it's really altering the way in which one can hear a song being played. Now, as far as the way in which it's gone, I'm really glad that these streaming services exist. I think streaming is really the way of the future. And it is the way in which people can get what they ultimately want and what they really want to listen to. It is really the thing that's going to take, I think, eventually hold. Now, as far as payment is concerned, obviously I understand that that's an issue. I think more people would be willing to pay for the streaming services if they had more money to pay for them. For example, if somebody was making a decent paycheck and they had a good job and whatnot, I think they would be more willing to pay for a streaming service. And I think it's the same for a lot of things. I think if more people had access to capital, I think they'd be more willing to spend it on things such as a streaming service. And not get ads. Personally, I don't mind the ads. I mean, radio has had ads forever. Why can't these streaming services? I mean, they have to pay the people somehow. I think that's only fair. And I think it's good that we have both options to where you can have it for free or you can pay for it. And I think that's just going to be the way of the future. I think obviously there do come some issues into play as far as what money the musicians get off of the streaming service, and all that. I think Taylor Swift had a big thing with Spotify or whatever, where I guess she didn't like what she was getting paid or something like that. But really, I think it's what's going to allow music to become a lot more accessible. It's going to make it a lot easier for people to be able to hear a song, and it's going to allow the market to better decide what songs get recognized. Because when you have a streaming service, you can choose the songs. It's not like you're forced to listen to songs that radio stations choose. You can decide. You, the individual, have the power. And I think this is really what streaming has given to people. It's given them back their right to find the music that they want. And what's great about some of these streaming services, in particular, I have Spotify. I really enjoy Spotify. I think It's a really great service. It's enjoyable. I love the playlists that I can gather from streaming on Spotify. They're really there. There's a lot of there's a really extensive library on Spotify. Um, there's a lot that it has to offer. But again, it obviously has its limitations. But for the most part, I've been happy using that platform. Um, but I understand if some people prefer Pandora or whatever else. But I think it is definitely streaming has brought music to a whole other level than what we've seen in the past. Because in the past, you had to either buy an album, buy a song. You had to really go in. You had to dig in there, and you had to just, basically just flip out your wallet and buy. Now you don't really have to worry about that anymore. And you have it all customized for you, unlike the radio where you have to just settle with whatever ends up getting played. And again, I think um, there are going to be ways into which people are going to, at least these streaming companies are going to try to get people to buy the service. I think there is going to be an incentive or different incentives for people to purchase ultimately that they're going to come up with, or at least they're going to come up with. But I think for where it stands now, from what I can tell, it's great. And I think it's good that we are making music more personal. You can choose, you can decide whatever else is out there. And obviously, I understand streaming has its limits as far as certain artists. There's some artists on Spotify that I can't find, unfortunately. They won't have their music on Spotify. But from what most that I found, usually Spotify has the songs that I want. But I can understand if some people can't find their work on the ones that they want on Spotify or on any other streaming service. But I think it's eventually going to get to a point where it will be a lot easier for artists to be able to get their music out there through streaming. Because with radio, it's always the biggest top of the top. But with Spotify, even maybe the smallest person could probably get on there and have sort of a voice or something, or have a say or whatnot. But yeah, I think though that's really all I can say though as far as this whole topic is concerned. I think streaming is probably going to be the way of the future. It's definitely going to become more customizable. It's going to become a lot more user-friendly probably, and it's going to be a lot more accessible, and there's going to be more extensive libraries, I think. And I ultimately think as well that people are going to eventually want to have some sort of subscription if they can afford it, and if not, then they can always take the radio kind of format. Well, they'll just have an ad or something that'll play before at a certain point, as they're listening to their music, which I think is ultimately fine, and I think works for what it is. But yeah, I think that's really ultimately all I can say though. If there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have, a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care.